daughter. She's very pretty.
I'm scared.
Hello and welcome to the DW Entertainment Channel. I am your host, Megan Basham, and we are here right now talking all things Shut In. It is the Daily Wire's first original feature film. And just to start out, I want to say this is your spoiler alert, so note it. We are going to be diving deep into details. We're going to be talking about themes and subtext. So if you have not seen the movie, stop what you're doing right now. Go subscribe to Daily Wire, get on dailywire.com, stream the movie, watch it, and then come back here and be a part of this great conversation. So I want to welcome our guests today. We're really excited to have the Federalist's culture editor extraordinaire, Emily Jashinsky. And we have our producer, Bonfire Legends CEO, Dallas Sonnier. And piping in by Zoom, we have director DJ Caruso. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
So I guess first question, is it weird to be back in the pantry?
Oh, yeah, it's really weird. I mean, we spent 2 weeks in this thing, shooting, every angle, every direction. So yeah, this is jarring to say the least.
I'm frightened.
Are we going to get out of here, right?
You guys closed the door. we're literally shut in.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting the feeling of what it was like for Rainey Qualley.
Yes.
It's working.
So, Dallas, I want to start by asking you, as you read through your bio and your movies, words like cannibalistic, dismemberment, these kind of words come up a lot. So tell me a little bit about those kind of movies and how you got interested in kind of that darkness and grit.
Sure. I mean, there's certainly a serious side to the answer, which is I lost both of my parents. And so, I wanted to process that loss through movies and things like that. And then I just got really good at it, right? I got really good at these genres and understanding how to make them and practical effects, and we call them gore gags. So everything from the color of the blood to the way you execute a scene, things like that. So I just really enjoy it. I also believe that you have to push the audience further outside their comfort zone than they're normally used to, because we live in a sort of a digital world of ones and zeros, and everything comes and goes quickly, and to really make an impact, you got to go pretty far. So that's where it comes from.
Well, your partner on this film, DJ Caruso, you've made some, somewhat dark films too, suspenseful, film noir, science fiction. I had a couple of readers write in and say, is he going to be making a comedy anytime soon? A DJ Caruso comedy?
Was this not a comedy?
Yeah. No, comedy. I admire and I love comedies. I love to watch a really good comedy, but I don't know. I just don't think that's in my DNA. I just think it's one of those things where timing and it's really interesting that you say that, because Disturbia, which was a fun sort of dark movie, there was a lot of comedy in that with Shia and Aaron Yeo, the way that they kind of played off each other. And it was really interesting because I wasn't setting out to make a comedy, but watching the movie play with the audience where they were laughing so hard, I remember thinking, if they laugh this hard, will they ever be scared by the time we get to Act 3? And in fact, it worked brilliantly, because laughter is an endearing quality, and so once they fell in love with the characters, then they went through that harrowing experience. But a straight out comedy, I don't think is for me, but finding comedic elements within a film, I think I can do that.
So Emily, I want to bring you into this discussion because you guys won't know this, but backstage, before we started filming, Emily brought up some really interesting points about sort of the Western canon and the biblical subtext that you guys were drawing on this. And I'm wondering how aware you were of it, or if that was just organic. And if you can talk a little bit, Emily, about what you saw there.
I think one of the things that American and in general Western pop culture is missing these days is that relationship with this common well that we draw from, which is the Western canon that we've seen as being pushed out of schools and all of that good stuff. But this film does it very subtly. And of course that subtext, it's not just subtext at certain parts of the movie, but even just the poetry, I think, of the apple and the metaphor, the way that it is weaved, I think, so well and seamlessly throughout the entire film. I think it really does put that canon back at the forefront. And Megan and I were talking about how, when you're sort of drawing from that house of sand of kind of postmodernism, your art's not going to be as good as when you're drawing on something that is true and that is good and that is beautiful. And I thought this film really did that to spectacular effect.
That was all in the script from the beginning.
Really?
You will not be surprised that when the script was existing in sort of traditional big Hollywood studio systems, they tried to take all of that out. Every turn, every note, every sort of rewrite, those moments were the first to get attacked every single time out of the gate. It's just, it's such a typical move by the studio system, but that was something that when I had the opportunity to take it out of there and bring it independently here, that was the goal, was to revert back to the original script, protect those elements. Those are important elements to me as a father, as a husband, as someone who's, very proud of our country and wants to fight for freedom. These were big key elements to me.
Well, and I didn't feel like you don't have to be a religious person to sort of tap into that symbolism. That moment at the end where she cuts the bad part off the apple, I was just, So I'm wondering, DJ, can you talk a little bit about that? And were any of those elements part of what attracted you to the film, to the script, or what did attract you?
Yeah, well, no, those elements obviously did attract me. You have sort of a genre piece, but laced within the genre piece at the core of it is a really, really strong theme. And whether you're religious or not, it's all like, for me, I just remember on the first read, and obviously you get to different places in your life, but I thought like the suffering that she goes through leads to such transcendence, and that's ultimately what we all have to go through. It's all not going to be perfect. Being human, we're so imperfect and we make a lot of mistakes and we have to go through a lot of things. And she has a very arduous road to walk through or to sit through to get through in this pantry, so that she can sort of redeem herself. So that theme for me was really vital and important. And it's also just being a Christian and being who I am. I always know that sometimes the answer is right in front of you or right inside of you, and you just don't know that. And I think being in that pantry and what happens and getting back in touch with her grandmother and her family and her roots and the core of who she truly is or was is something that was really, really important to me. Very, very important to me. And that's the only, I had read the original script before it got to Hollywood and got sort of changed. And then when Dallas sent it back to me again, I got the original script back again. So I was really pleased to see that, it hadn't been touched.
I think when people shy away from that, it's where they struggle to connect with audiences. Because if you can't if you're not willing to confront head on their own values and what's true in their own lives, I think it makes it much more difficult for films to resonate with them.
That's the hedonistic nature of Hollywood, which doesn't understand forgiveness. It's all about, sort of a conformity, rewarding conformity and going in there and doing what is expected. And that's just not how I operate, right? And it's not how, anyone on this movie operated. So we operated from such a different perspective. That's why I think these movies are special. You're absolutely touching on it. I mean, we're seeking a creatively unfiltered experience that isn't neutered by the Hollywood, Harvard executives who give terrible creative notes. It's that simple to me.
I was wanting to ask DJ about that, about this experience of working on this movie without all of those horrible creative notes.
Well, were
there some?
There were some.
Feel free to tell us about those.
No, well, it is interesting. I've only been a couple times, and this was really refreshing because you do always, before you embark on your journey to make a movie, you open your email now and you see notes from creative. No one has the balls to actually put their name on the note. And you just start reading all these things and you go, well, why did you want to make? No, it was really refreshing. It was like, there is something so beautiful and pure about, here's the script. We do love it. We love it. Make sure we're on the same page and build the same foundation and just go shoot it. And honestly, the notes were, very minuscule. There was nothing heavy or different. It was only about how do we make it and reinforce the script. So it was incredibly refreshing. And that's the beauty of this independent cinematic world. It's different because I've had all the bells and whistles and all the toys. I've had not all the bells and whistles and toys. And ultimately it ends up being those 5 or 7 creative people around the camera with the actors, the producer, that make the movie. No matter how big the movie is, it always comes down to just what's in front of the camera.
Amanda Presmick told me a story yesterday, and you were not here for this, Emily, but you're about to die, that Vincent Gallo pulled a tooth for this movie. Is that correct?
Okay, so we were going through the casting process of Sammy, who is essentially our villain. And, we had a lot of really great actors, but it felt like the movie needed a sort of a name anchor, right? Someone who was going to just really capture that and go there. This is a dark role, farther than most actors have experience going. And I had met Vincent Gallo while casting Bone Tomahawk. He almost played the role of David Arquette in the movie. And so I remembered I had his phone number still in my contacts. So we were getting right down to the end, right down to the wire. We had a couple of great options. So I'm just going to Hail Mary this. And I called him and he answered.
Is that how things are done in Hollywood? You just call him up and they answer?
He hasn't made a movie in 10 years. He doesn't have any representatives anymore. So it was so anyway, he lays out his parameters. If you do these things, I'll say yes. It was terrific. He wanted a very specific set of Gucci shoes from a specific collection in 1998 or whatever, and he called them and got them, right? So he needed time to do that. I mean, we needed him to get on a plane in 7 days. And so the funny thing about, I don't want to blow his cool factor, but he kept telling me I'm not gonna, engage too much on set because I want to stay in character, whatever. He got to set. Everyone was so nice to him that by like 20 minutes in, he was hanging out with everyone, and he was totally breaking his own rules. But yes, he did pull a tooth. He pulled a healthy tooth. He drove to Beverly Hills and went to a dentist and had a healthy tooth pulled for the movie.
Have you ever sort of known someone in your life or met someone who's an addict, and sometimes there's a weird thing like that, a weird glitch, like I have to have this shoe or I have to have something that they hold out as a sign of being successful. I actually felt like little things like that came out in his character throughout the film. Did you see that, Emily?
Yes, in his character, I think in actually the film in general. And I think this is, again, sort of an underrepresented but endemic problem, right? Drug addiction in rural areas, especially with men, and then women who sort of have to deal with the fallout or deal with it themselves. It gets sort of transferred. And children growing up either without a father or with, deadbeat fathers. It's just difficult, obviously, but it's something that I just think Hollywood doesn't represent it well. Our culture, it doesn't represent it well. Our media doesn't represent it well. And I think this film keyed in on it in very accurate and specific ways. And I would be curious to hear both of your perspectives on how you did make that depiction feel so real and so poignant.
First and foremost is you always need to talk to people who have experienced this or had this problems. So I connected the actors with some of the locals in the research that we did. And just so that you understand the behavior, and having dealt with this, my very first film I did was called The Salton Sea, and it dealt with the meth addiction even before it was on Breaking Bad. So I kind of got to deal with that and got a little bit of early look at the powers and the dangers of meth and sort of how it can tear apart a person, how it can tear apart a family. What is so beautiful and tempting about that drug the first time you take it, and you're always trying to chase that and get back to that again. And I think so it was really just trying to have the actors talk, and we sat with and got some phone conversations and some Zoom conversations with people who've experienced these problems, some who have kicked meth, some who have not kicked meth. So you can kind of understand what you're dealing with. And it's sort of that fractured family. And I think when you come from the truth of what the characters are trying to say, particularly in Jessica's case, she still loves Rob. As messed up as Rob is, that love for him is never going to go away, or it might eventually go away based on what happened, but you don't ever want to truly break free. Here's someone who is trying to get healthy, has done the right thing, is just coming out of rehab, and right away she hits this crisis, and I think that's why we make movies like this. If she was cured in the beginning and drove away, then we have no movie. So we have to go through the suffering and that path towards the pain, and it's really profound in a way about the self-realization. And same thing with Rob. I mean, Rob loves her and did love his kids and does love his kids, but he's so sick and he's such an addict that he's at that tipping point of where he probably can't get back to, he got to a point of no return, and we witnessed that happen as the movie progresses.
So do you think independent movies are the future then as we move into the streaming revolution?
So I am not interested in the traditional Hollywood studio system for reasons that I can't do what I do best within their confines. So independent movies were a great home for me and the types of things that I like to make and my skill sets. The problem is the distributors are getting more and more afraid as we enter into, the world of cancel culture and things like that. And so my movies became more and more dangerous for the executives to choose and release. I mean, Run, Hide, Fight was the perfect example of this. Shut In wouldn't have looked like this, even in certain cases if a Lionsgate was releasing it. So this to me, this is the new independent American cinema that we are building and creating because we don't want to make movies their way, so to speak.
So, Dallas, we're talking about those racial quotas, and I've done some reporting on this, on the DEI issues, the diversity, inclusion, and all of those mandates they're putting in place. And you look at that, and you look at today's Oscar nominations and the requirements that they had to meet, and you go, what does that do to the creative process?
Well, it destroys it. I mean, Hollywood is so obsessed with race and gender and all these different things. There's now boxes that are checked on certain casting breakdowns, and when you're hiring a director, that require that the director be BIPOC or LGBTQIA, so on and so forth, or the actor for this role or whatever. There's all these rules. That's the problem, right? I won't follow the rules. So you put a rule in front of me, I'm going to break it or run around it, and so. That isn't going to work for me, and it's not going to work for our type of movies. So coming to the Daily Wire and making movies with and for them is such a gift, right, to creatives and to a producer like myself who wants that creatively unfiltered experience.
Well, I was just going to say, I think one of the most undertold stories from Hollywood today is how serious of an effect on quality those quotas are having right now, on the quality of movies, on the quality of television. I think people don't understand, and I was glad the Barry Weiss piece picked up on this, but people don't understand, I think, how this is just very much having an immediate effect in writers' rooms. There's this problem, especially when you have quota systems, of actually making quality films. And then you layer the bureaucracy. I mean, just the bureaucracy of these old studios. And what you guys are able to do is so much more nimble. It is so much more edgy. And the question is sort of like, this is serious competition. This is creating like very real and very serious competition because it is drawing on something true and it's telling these stories in a great way. And one of the things I've noticed from watching what you all are up to and just in Hollywood in general is a lot of really talented people are now attracted to this kind of work because they see the benefits of it. They sort of see the benefits in terms of quality and just the work in general, but also because they are sick of the establishment. They're creatives and they want to be creative. And that's not to say it's everybody in Hollywood, but what I've noticed increasingly, especially just from spending the limited amount of time around you guys that I've been privileged to do, is there are a whole lot of creative people out there who are brimming with creative energy and want to be a part of something that is more nimble and that is more creative.
It's every day now. A phone call, an email, a text from a screenwriter who's written movies you've all seen, a director who's directed movies you've all seen, a movie star, a series regular on a television show. It's becoming every single day for me now. I got to tell you, I got to give DJ a ton of credit here because he was willing to step up and make the first one, right? Now, it was a huge decision. And so we approached DJ on this by design. We sought him out by name because we wanted a commercially competitive movie that looked and felt big, even though the narrative was sort of little box, big idea. We sought DJ out and came after him and really pursued him because we wanted a specific competitive movie, like you said. So that is absolutely correct.
Well, and DJ, I don't know if you happened to see it, but that Quentin Tarantino interview, I think it was with Bill Maher, where he talked about sort of losing that ability to just create the artistic vision. And I look at somebody like you with your pedigree, with your history. Were you excited about the opportunity to do something independent, or was there any hesitation there?
No, there really wasn't any hesitation. That I do, because I've made now two, like, this is my second purely independent film. The other one was called Standing Up, which I operated the camera. We shot it in 18 days. But it was the best time I ever had, like literally the best time I ever had. And so I embraced it, and I wasn't afraid of it, just because, one, the script and the story were so good. And I knew that as far as from the independent, like, if you had $15 million to make this movie, you still couldn't make it as good as we made it for this little money.
That's right.
It didn't need it. It doesn't need it. It really is. Dallas is right. Like, when Vincent was there, it's like, we have a pantry, we have a house, and that's what we have. There's nothing else. You can't go anywhere. There's nowhere else to go. We're in the middle of nowhere. So no, I wasn't afraid of it, but I think, when I did see that interview with Quentin, and it was great. And I love that Bill said, please don't make that your last movie, because I want to see more Quentin movies. But yeah, no, I did feel creatively, look, I didn't have any handcuffs on. I'll be honest. I mean, Dallas is a great partner. I did not have any handcuffs on.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you are going to go out and tell all the other directors, listen, you want to make a movie with the Daily Wire.
He doesn't want to create competition for himself.
Yeah.
No, DJ is a dream to work with, and welcome back anytime we can have him.
Thank
Absolutely. And, I've been talking to everyone around the offices, and I just know that we all feel so proud of this being our first original movie. It was just fantastic, and you guys did such a great job. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And again, if you watched it, even with the spoilers, still go see it. Now you're going to have all of this stuff to think about as you're watching the movie. Go stream on dailywire.com.
Jessica. I can smell the weakness from here.
Rob
owes me money.
Let me out, please.
What good is this doing now?
You had your way. I'm scared.
Now you must pay.
Your daughter, she's very pretty.